So you're looking into buying a long lens for your Sony camera, and you're wondering, is it still worth it to buy the 70-200 f4 from Sony, this thing over here? So today I'm gonna make a review of this lens, so stick around until the end of the video for all of the details. I'm gonna take this lens out now because I didn't have a lot of opportunities to shoot around with it because of bad weather, then the corona situation, and yeah, the corona situation is still ongoing. So I was wondering how I can get some good photos with this lens without actually going out into public with a lot of people and so on, because I mainly do street photography. And luckily for me, I remember that there is a nature reserve with horses nearby, so I'm going to check that out. Let's hope that there are not too many people. And I will also review some of the photos that I already made with this lens in different types of photography, like portrait photography as well as some street photography. If you've seen my video regarding the photography contest, the photo that I used and won the contest was actually made with this lens. So let's hit the B-roll and see you after the photo shoot with the horses. Let's hope we find some. Okay, so finally I think I have enough shots with this lens over here so I can do a proper review. And I'm going to jump into Lightroom and review some of the photos I've done in the past, as well as the ones from the horse shooting. And I will also include timestamps in the descriptions for the different parts of this review. But first of all, let's start with what comes with the lens and what you get for your money, because this is not a cheap lens. You pay, I actually paid, I don't know, something like 1,400 euros for this lens, so it definitely goes into the expensive range. And yeah, let's start off with this thing over here. This is the I actually made quite an impression. This is the best lens bag I've gotten until now. It's a leather one, and it's really soft on the inside. It's really high quality. Definitely, you can see from the bag directly that you bought something that's considered premium, or at least on the more expensive side. Then we go to the lens. First of all, you have the coloring. It has this famous white coloring for the 70-200 lenses and more expensive zoom lenses that you get with Canon, Sony. Nikon's are black, but this one are with the white one. I do say this is space white because for some reason I link this color to some space tech. I don't know why, but it definitely has that recognizable profi look. You have your lens cap. The cool thing is this is also kind of soft material on the inside, which is not just plastic. It just made an impression that it's not the typical just plastic on the inside. And then we get to the lens itself. You have your lens mount here for a tripod which is really handy because this is not a light lens. I'm going to include some technical details somewhere over here regarding size, weight, and stuff like that. And then we can dive into the lens itself. You have your first switch, which is the autofocus manual focus switch. Then you have your range switch. You have your optical steady shot on and off switch, and you have, why isn't it focusing? You have your mode switch over here. You have mode 1 and mode 2. You also get these buttons over here. You have 3 of them. These are programmable buttons. To be honest, I still haven't used these buttons because this thing, as far as I know, is a Sony thing. I haven't used a camera lens that has this until now, so I'm not used to it. I think with the time I will get used to it and start using them. Usually a good function for these buttons is to hold the focus. So one more thing about the lens is it's an internal zoom, which means you don't get expansions, which is cool. It's a compact lens. It's definitely smaller and lighter than the 2.8 version. My opinion on this is it's not worth it to buy the 2.8 version because you get almost the same results as this lens over here, but it's lighter and cheaper, a lot cheaper. One thing I don't like about the zoom ring is you can hear this when you hit the limit. It clinks. Maybe they could have made it a little bit smaller, but the zoom ring is really, really smooth, and I like how it works. It does have some traction to it, so it's not just freely rotating. You cannot directly go from one side to the other. Also, it's endless. So basically, you cannot go to infinity and then go back. You have to look at your camera in order to get your focus, for example, if you're trying to do some landscaping or stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much about the lens itself as hardware, what you get, and what extras you have with the lens. So now it's time to jump into Lightroom. Okay, so we are finally into Lightroom, and we're going to go like this with the photos. First, we'll have a couple of street photos, then we're going to get into portraits, landscapes, and then finally some test shots that I prepared during my walk into the wild reserve with the horses, mainly to show you depth of field, bokeh, and stuff like that. So this is a photo I think this was actually my first photo I took with the 70-200 of this couple just hugging and kissing in the street. This, you can see it's at 200 millimeters. There is a bit of separation in the back with the background, although it's not too blurry. That's because actually the buildings weren't quite far away from them. But I did manage to get this photo without disturbing the couple, which is cool for street photography. If you want to get some candid moments, this is amazing. And next we move on to actually the photo that won the contest. I took this from the walls of the castle in Nuremberg over the entire city. It's actually at 73 millimeters, so it's almost at the full wide of the lens, and the detail is it's just crazy. You can get so much detail. And by the way, this is the JPEG version. This is the edited version. So with the raw file, you could get, I think, much more detail and a little bit less noise because I did want to bring up some of the shadows. Also, you can see here, you get some really nice lens flares because I included the sun, and it's not something ugly. It's not something that's messing up with your photo. It can actually be used as an really good effect on the photo itself. This one I actually took in the crop mode because I wanted to extend my range of the lens to the equivalent of almost 350 millimeters or something like that, because this street was actually quite far away. But I did like the entire composition, how the street was lit up by the sun, and also the sun lit up the smoke coming from the chimneys. It just provided a really nice contrast, warm versus cold. But you can definitely make some really cool cityscapes with this lens as well. If you have a high advantage point, you can grab some really nice detailed shots of the city. Even if I zoom way over here in the far back, even though there was, in the cities there is some smog and stuff like that. Also, this was during January, so basically there was a constant fog because of the river in Nuremberg and so on. But you can still see details far away, and I mean that's like I don't know, 6-7 kilometers away, maybe more. From my February trip to Bulgaria, this up in the mountains in Vratsa. I did mention that this is one of my favorite places to go in the Ask Me Anything video. If you haven't seen it, pop-up will appear right now. This is actually, I wanted to capture the magnitude of the mountain, and the compression I get from this lens helped me a lot. Because this was actually quite far away from me, and I wanted to capture this exact part because I love the leading lines and everything. But again, if you zoom in, you can clearly see the detail. You can see every single little tree, and again, that was I don't know, maybe 6-7, maybe more kilometers away from me. The next two shots are actually made with a Tamron, and I've included them, which Tamron? The 28-75 2.8 Tamron, and I've included them just so I can use them as a comparison with the portraits I shot with the 70-200. So basically, this is my cousin, and I took some portrait shots of her. Keep in mind how the background is blurred right here. This is with a 2.8 lens at 50 millimeters. You can see the blur you get from the mountains in the back. And then, by the way, these two are edited. The other three are not edited. So keep that also in mind. If we move over here, you can see you get almost exactly the same amount of blur in the background. This is at 127 millimeters f4. The only difference is, of course, the background compression, but I do love the look of a compressed background for a portrait. And this is at 127, and then we have some portraits at 200 millimeters. You can see the background is completely blurred. You have this nice separation from your subject. I know the posing is bad, that's why I haven't edited these photos. I just wanted to use them as an example how you can blur out the background without any problems. By the way, she was standing in the same position as in this photo, so you can see the difference just by stepping backward and zooming in, how much you can blur out the background. Then we move on to some landscape photos, again in the mountains. These are all edited photos. I mean, I have little to say here. Basically, I love the photos, I love the details, love the colors. Okay, sorry, I took this photo actually with a Tamron, and I constantly change lenses. That's a big problem I have. Anyways, I took this one with the Tamron, so just you can see the whole area, and the part where that I actually took photos of with the 70-200 is this small part over here. So you can see that part over here zoomed in, and this is in crop mode, and you still get a ton of detail, even though you get with the A7 Mark III that I'm shooting, like something like 16 megapixel, 12 megapixel, I don't know, something like that, but really low pixel count. And yeah, over here you can see the small houses. I'm pretty sure those houses are more than 10 kilometers away. You can steal some details. This is actually, I don't think I've edited this photo. I think it's still raw. Oh no, it's edited, okay. Then I've done a poor job editing. Anyways, moving on. Finally, the photos from the wildlife reserve. Sadly, I couldn't catch the horses moving fast. They were kind of lazy. So I did do some um, wildlife, still wildlife, you can call it like that. Anyways, here I've included also the raw images, so you can see this is the edited version. This is also in crop mode because the horses were quite far away, and this is these are some unedited photos. Basically, I can actually show you how you can get some detail back, a little bit of contrast, more saturation. Really like the greens and the orange on the horses. Yeah, I do know they don't look like normal horses. This is a special breed. I think this is the most dynamic shot I got from the horses. But yeah, anyways, this is shot at 200 millimeters f4 1/800. So since they weren't moving that fast, you can even in crop mode with the lesser pixel count, you can see there is quite a lot of detail when you zoom in at 100%. Then we can move on to this one. This one I actually have an edited version that should be here, but maybe I forgot to include it. Yeah. Okay, so this is at 70 millimeters. We can zoom into the corners. There is basically no vignetting. You can pull up, because of the dynamic range of Sony, so you can get a lot of detail back. We can zoom into the edges. Even at f4, you can see, just let it load, basically from over here until the back you get a lot of detail. Even at f4 you don't have to close that much, but of course landscape photographers will always close. I wasn't prepared with a tripod or anything, so I had to shoot handheld, and I couldn't close my aperture too much, but still you see how much detail and sharpness you get from this lens. Next shots I actually took so you can see the bokeh that you get from the lens. The focus was this flower over here, and there were more flowers in the back. This is actually an unedited photo, so I'm going to just slightly bring up the shadows, some black, add a little bit of vibrance. You can see I actually love the bokeh I have in this photo. To be honest, if I have a model here for a portrait, the background would be perfect. Next one is again a bokeh. Yeah, a bokeh demo. You can see how the bokeh bows look. They're not ugly, they're not distracting, they're not rectangular. Some of them do look a little bit elliptical, but I think that's more because of the flowers themselves. I love this shot. Sadly, I didn't have time to edit it, but you can also see that if you want, you can separate your subjects from your background without actually losing too much detail in the background. Even at f4, this is at f4.5, 70 millimeters. This is the widest it gets. We can actually zoom over here to see. Yes, it does get a little bit distorted at the right end of the edge, but that's pretty good in my book. And I'm going to just go quickly through some other shots I took just to see what you can do with this lens. Okay, so this is one I actually used. The focus was this old grandpa, and what I loved here was the fact that the young people were coming in this direction and the old person was going in that direction. It's a very versatile lens. That the least I can say is that. You can also see when shooting directly at the sun, you still manage to get a ton of detail. I love this shot. And again, some blurred background. Actually, the background was not more than a couple of meters back. This is, I think, yeah, this is zoomed out at 200 millimeters, so you can basically blur out the background if you go 200 millimeters, even if it's not too far away. And the last shot is actually the depth of field test. Again, at 200 millimeters, you can see this is not more than I would say not more than 30 centimeters depth of field, basically where your subject should stay. And then after that, just let me zoom in, you can see how quickly the background just melts away. So in conclusion regarding this lens, I can say that it's definitely worth having in your camera bag. It's definitely worth buying over the 2.8 version, especially if you're on a budget. But I would use the difference in the prices to buy a different lens, maybe to expand my focal length. And the images are quite amazing. It does come short at some points, but I wouldn't trade it for another lens. Let's say the 100 to 400 millimeter lens. I would prefer to get a 200 to 600 lens just for the higher reach. Or in case you're shooting with an R version, you don't have any problem shooting in crop mode because you still get enough pixels. And it's also very versatile because of the 70 to 200 range. You can use it for landscape, street photography, portraits, everything. And if you have the option, I would definitely recommend buying this lens, especially if you're just switching to Sony and you're just thinking of which lenses would best fit you. I would say this is my second most used lens after the Tamron 28 to 75, but I use that one mainly because of video, so that's why I use it so often. But for photography, I would say the Tamron and this one are equally used, and I love using this lens. It gets amazing results. If you have any questions regarding the lens, write them down in the comments as well. Let me know if you have this lens, what are your impressions, what you like the most about the lens. If this video was helpful and informative in any way, I would appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing, hitting that bell icon. Doesn't hurt, it's free. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you on my other video, guys. Ciao.